On a winter's afternoon on the northern coast, Junko Izumi looks out to sea and remembers when he was a top gun in the world of whaling. As a harpoonist, he slaughtered hundreds of the giant animals. But then the ban came. These days, whaling is limited to what Japan calls scientific research. But now, some, like Izumi, see a chance of a return to the good old days. Izumi prays for the whales he has killed, and also for a return to commercial whaling.
私たちはやっぱりクジラ取りだし船乗りだから、私からクジラを取ったらまずもう自分自身もう死ねというのと一緒ですよね。
Japan once caught around 2,000 whales a year. But that came to an end in 1986 when the world banned commercial whaling. The decision crippled Japan's whaling industry but did not kill it. Junko Izumi can still hunt whales, but in much smaller numbers than he did before. Each year Japan kills 600 whales in the name of science. Izumi and the Japanese government say it should be more, that the ban should be lifted.
禁止になって13年ぐらいになりますよね。すごいですよ今。船の方が避けないとちょっとアメリカの原潜みたいにぶつかるぐらい多いわけですよ。増えてるんです。増えてるんですよ。
Environmental groups claim that even the so-called scientific whaling is unacceptable, let alone a return to commercial whaling.
Whales are an integral part of our world's oceans, and it's important to put them into that perspective. The world's whales are the world's whales. They belong to everybody and they belong to no one. They have an intrinsic right to exist in the oceans. We, as another species, do not have the right to drive them to extinction.
The Japanese believe an attack on their whaling is an attack on their culture. They dismiss the environmentalists as troublemakers with a vested self-interest.
The image of Japan could be what advocated used as a villain or bad guys. Actually, that is not the case. But and also, if you combine the image of the cute, adorable animals, such bad guys killing a good guy would really help them to generate money.
It's 6 a.m. and the northern port of Ishinomaki is preparing to welcome home the whaling mothership Nishin Maru. She's been at sea for 6 months and is now carrying a precious cargo. On board are 440 whales caught and killed in the Antarctic oceans for research purposes. High-ranking officials have come from Tokyo to praise the crew's efforts.
皆様方のご努力により集められた資料も駆使しながら少しでも前進するように一丸となって努力をしてまいりたいと考えております。
We're taken on a tour, the first time the foreign media has been allowed to see the inner workings of Japanese whaling. We're shown the ship's laboratory.
Yes, here is a biological research room, and we do various biological research and study here.
For a research vessel, the space seemed rather small. Further below, in the bowels of the ship, a much bigger room with a very different purpose.
Here is a factory space for products, whale meat products.
At sea, 100 people work in this room, carving up the whale meat that will be sold for human consumption. 2,000 tons of whale meat is transferred from the ship's freezer. The meat will go to market and from there to restaurants across the country. But the government denies it is a commercial operation in disguise.
We are not considering we are killing many whales. If it's a disguised commercial whaling, we should kill more than 10,000.
Nonetheless, the government's top fisheries official, Masayuki Komatsu, says commercial whaling is a cultural right.
Japan nurtured fish eating culture more than 1,000 years. So I strongly believe, our body is constituted with the more kind of DNA, which is more receptive to the fish than livestock and others.
Although whale is not a fish, it's a mammal.
Yeah, but it is in the ocean, and many parts of the Japanese culture are developed by eating whales.
It's difficult to know just how important whaling is to Japanese culture. It is true that some whale has been eaten here for hundreds, perhaps thousands of years. But most Japanese had their first contact with it in the dark days after World War II, when food was scarce. General MacArthur ordered Japan's fleet to the southern oceans to hunt for whale. The meat became so common it was used in school lunches. These days there aren't many places where you can eat whale. It's in restaurants like this that the whale-eating tradition is kept alive. You can eat whale cooked in all manner of styles: battered, baked, crumbed, fried, or not cooked at all. You can get everything from its tail to its testicles.
日本人の固有の文化というのはですね、クジラを食べてずっと育ってきたと。もし我々から言わせれば、牛ですね、小さい子羊ですね、子牛、ああいうものを食べちゃいけませんよね。かわいそうですね。イギリスに対してね、ティーを飲まないで日本のお茶を飲みなさいという同じことですよ。そのような考え方は絶対やめてください。それはもうまたナンセンス。
In small fishing villages like Ayukawa, it's not just a cultural argument, but an economic one. Ayukawa was totally dependent on whaling. Since the ban, they say the town's population has halved.
人少なくなってほらね、働く人もなくなってだんだん過疎化されてきてるね。
Almost all the locals relied on the industry in one way or another. Yukataka Chijimatsu has been carving whale bone for more than 60 years.
あれですね、ぜひ取れないとね、生活できないですよ。原料が手に入らないからね。
In a nearby restaurant, some local businessmen discuss the virtue of whale meat.
クジラの肉ぐらいね、飽きないものはない。朝はお刺身で食べる。昼はバーベキュー、焼肉で食べる。
四つ足、いわゆる動物食べちゃいけないっていうのが日本のその伝統だったのよ。 だから牛食べないの。
その代わりクジラはな、
クジラは四つ足じゃないでしょ。あれ
足がないから。
そうだから
あれはほら今までねやっぱりあれじゃない。
Just out to sea from Ayakawa, we found yet another reason the Japanese want to return to commercial whaling. Many of these men used to hunt whales. Now they catch something a lot smaller, prawns. But they want a resumption of commercial whaling, not just because they want their old jobs back, but because they say the whales are eating all the fish. The Japanese government agrees and says killing whales will actually help the environment by protecting the fish.
They are very much eating tremendous amount of the fish, and the preliminary conclusion made by the scientist is saying that 3 to 5 times of the fishes are consumed by the cetaceans, whales.
There's absolutely no scientific evidence to support claims that whales are eating all the fish and therefore we need to kill whales in order to control the balance in the world's oceans. I mean, simply on a linear exercise, if fish are being removed, then whale numbers would drop accordingly. That's not the situation. It's a far more complex ecosystem than that.
But the Japanese claim they have all the scientific evidence they need to support a return to commercial whaling. And it's right here in Ayakawa. For this is where they bring samples from every whale that Japan catches in international waters.
クジラ何頭でですか？
大体600頭ぐらいです。全部で。はい。
It is this research program that makes Japan's whaling legal under international treaty. This is Japan's biggest whale research laboratory, but only 3 scientists work here. Nationwide, there are just 25 scientists involved in the research effort. But then, the samples they analyse are remarkably small. 20 metres of whale comes down to this. The scientists' main job is to analyse DNA samples, obtaining information on breeding and migration patterns. They insist that they need to kill the whales to get the data they need.
その耳石にあるその耳石から年齢査定を行うわけです。
And the major finding of the research? Whale numbers have increased dramatically.
このような情報をもとに将来的にその商業捕鯨に進むなりということがあるかもしれませんけれども、まず最初に必要なのは科学的な情報を集めることだと思います。
It seems a somewhat self-fulfilling argument. Japan needs to kill whales to discover whether it can kill more whales. But the government claims the research is both necessary and genuine.
I would not see any other research which contributed such aspect of elucidation on what's going on under the surface of the oceans.
Have there been genuine scientific findings from the research?
Yes. Many aspects are coming up from this research activity. We incorporated more than 100 of the items to be collected by scientific hunting. Most important findings are, competition between whale eating fish and fishery itself.
This is not scientific whaling. This is not a necessary program. It was never requested by the International Whaling Commission. Indeed, Japan has been requested to stop, and yet they continue to do so. And they continue to do so because they want to maintain a sector of their industry that is able to and has the skills to continue commercial whaling.
It is true that the Japanese have a unique relationship with sea creatures. Japan represents 1/50th of the world's population, but it eats 1/3 of the world's fish. It only takes an early morning trip to the Tsukiji fish markets to see the evidence. What makes this debate so difficult is that it's not just a clash of wills, it's a clash of cultures. It seems no amount of international pressure will force Japan to back down. As far as Tokyo is concerned, it's a matter of national pride, and no one has any right to tell Japan what it can and can't eat. And the Japanese, it seems, like to eat everything. Give up the right to eat one species, and who knows what could be next. There's one particular species of fish the Japanese regard as to die for. Bluefin tuna, eaten raw as sushi. Recently, a single fish sold for $300,000. But like the whales before it, the tuna's numbers are declining rapidly, the result of overfishing. The fear here is lose the whale battle and sushi could be next.
This is a matter of principle. Once we are going to give up this good war, how can we, fight in any other area as justifiably as this level of the war in the whaling issue?
It now appears that despite international condemnation, despite even the threat of sanctions, Japan is determined to have its way. At last year's annual IWC meeting in Australia, 6 Caribbean countries, with no apparent interest in whaling, voted with Japan on virtually every motion. They even overturned a proposed South Pacific whale sanctuary. It was suspected that Japan had bought those votes by offering overseas development aid, or ODAs. Those suspicions have now, for the first time, been confirmed.
Japan does not have military powers. Japanese means is simply diplomatic communication and ODAs. So, in order to get, appreciation over Japan's position, of course, that is natural that we must resort on those two major tools. So, I think there is nothing wrong.
Japan, with the support of the countries it has bought, will once again push for a resumption of commercial whaling. It's unlikely that Japan has recruited enough countries to overturn the ban, yet. But its bloc is building, and it appears that in the end, it will come down to a matter of money.